What is up, volleyball fans all over the world? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, coming at you with another episode of Set Point. I know it's been the second episode in the past 3 days, but I am back yet again. We are back on schedule, ready to talk about some volleyball action coming from all over the place in the college world. Also talk about my night at Cal State Long Beach, where I also got to witness the black and blue rivalry between Long Beach State and UC Irvine. Plus, we had a bunch of 5-set matches yesterday. It was crazy. Better than some of the NFL games that went on yesterday. Nah, I'm kidding. But really, those 5-set matches, woo! For 5-set matches of plenty. So, I'm going to be getting into that today, and I'll probably be getting into the top 25 once it gets out. So, yeah. Once again, I'd like to thank all of the listeners that's tuning in on every platform, whether it's Spreaker, whether it's iHeartRadio, whether it's pretty much any podcast, no matter where you're listening from. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to all our fans, all our listeners for helping support IE Sports Radio. Because without you, this show wouldn't be anything, and IE Sports Radio wouldn't be anything without you. So I gotta hit the applause button for you all. Alright, so we're actually going to start things off a little different. I'm actually going to talk about my second straight night at Long Beach State. So I was at Long Beach State covering the Long Beach State women's volleyball game against UC Irvine. So my second straight night covering Long Beach State women's volleyball. I'm basically the beat writer for them for the school newspaper called the Daily 49er. Or it might be changed to the Daily Shark, but either way, I cover women's volleyball at Long Beach State for the school newspaper. And, this match went a lot better than the one against Cal State Fullerton on Friday, as Long Beach State managed to sweep away UC Irvine. It was actually the first home win for Long Beach State, so that's very impressive. Everyone was pretty much happy if you were rooting for Long Beach State. And after the game, I interviewed team captain Haley Harward in a press conference, and I asked her, how did it feel to beat UC Irvine? And she said, I love beating Irvine. She said it with a big old smile on her face, and that was quite amazing. And honestly, Long Beach State played really well. They played with so much more energy than they did than on Friday against Cal State Fullerton. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was Fullerton being more improved, or Long Beach State having a case of the Fridays. But honestly, Long Beach looked like a totally different team against Irvine. I know this is one of Irvine's down years, but, Irvine has a really good win over Hawaii, and that's not an easy team to beat, especially at Stan Sheriff Center. So I think playing Irvine was a little bit of a trap game, because especially coming off of a night again when they played Cal State Fullerton. For those of you that don't know what a trap game is, it's basically playing an opponent that's not as strong that you're favored to win against, and then playing a formidable opponent next week. I asked Long Beach State coach Joy Mackenzie Fewerbringer if she thought that this game was a trap game facing UC Irvine. She actually didn't know what the term trap game was, so I kind of had to explain it to her to the best of my ability. And yeah, but overall, I think it was a solid win for Long Beach State. Really solid win. Amanda Henderson and Kashana really stood out. She had 12 kills. Kashana Williams had 12 kills. Katie Kennedy had 11 kills for Long Beach State. And Aries Hua, who is from China, who plays middle blocker, really also stood out as well. She serves really tough. She's a force in the middle. She actually even plays good side-out defense, and she digs the ball pretty well. So if you're a middle blocker and you can do that, you definitely are doing things correctly when it comes to volleyball. So, and then Haley Harvard was just all over the place. She actually moved to fourth all time in digs when it came to Long Beach State. So she is fourth in terms of all time when it comes to the all-time record in digs, and she's aiming for number 3. She's definitely shooting for top 3, and I think she can do it. So gotta hit the applause button one time for Haley Harward. Now it's very impressive that she just continues to just go the distance, and she's a freaking warrior, man. She actually wasn't playing libero last year. I think she was playing like all kinds of positions except for like setter or middle blockers, and I think she was like a defensive specialist, and I think she was also hitting from the outside. So yeah, Haley can do it all. She's definitely got a bright future ahead of her in volleyball, and she also is a really darn good beach volleyball player. So honestly, Haley Harward's going places, man. So. And Long Beach State's pretty young, so she kind of has to instruct the youngsters and just steer them in the right direction. Because the young Mustangs are always tough to control. Can't really break them. You gotta teach them where to run. That's what I was told one time. So as I'm talking about Long Beach State and UC Irvine, that game was actually featured on ESPN3, which was really cool, to be featured on live television. And, Long Beach State hasn't had the best year, and UC Irvine hasn't really had the best year. But those two teams, it's a rivalry game. Nothing is better than a rivalry game. And for Long Beach State to win that game, like I said, was really good. That first set kind of had me a little concerned. They were up for the most part. They were had a steady 4-point lead, and then it looked like Irvine was about to chomp at the bits and rally back to steal the set. And I was thinking, it better not be it better not be Fullerton again. But then Long Beach managed to tip the momentum in their favor, and winning that first set really just set the tone for Long Beach and UC Irvine. Long Beach just then had no intention of slowing down. They never trailed in set 2. Set 3, they were only down 2-1 at one point. And although Irvine was keeping it close in the beginning, Long Beach just straight up took it away by storm. So you gotta give it, to me, I gotta give it up for Long Beach for a little while. I'm just gonna give them a little bit of a clap. I won't hit the applause button this time. But now Long Beach has a little bit of a bigger challenge this upcoming week. This Saturday, they play Cal State Northridge. It's going to be at the Pyramid, so I'll be there yet again. And after that game, it's going to be a trick-or-treat night where if you have, kids get to trick-or-treat after the game, which is really cool. To be young again. It's too bad I can't trick-or-treat. It would be awesome to trick-or-treat again, to be a kid again. So on the topic of Big West volleyball, another Big West women's volleyball match took place on Saturday. It was much bigger, and I'm surprised this one wasn't featured on ESPN3. This was Cal Poly and UC Santa Barbara. The game took place at UC Santa Barbara in the Thunderdome. And UC Santa Barbara, 1 week after they lost to Hawaii, they managed to take down Cal Poly, and they beat them in 4 sets. I told the Long Beach State coach, Joy Mackenzie Feuerbringer, about how that happened, and everyone was a little surprised. Well, actually, no, hardly anyone was a bit surprised. I kind of was surprised because I thought I predicted Cal Poly to win that one in 5. Now I'm kind of eating my words, and boy, do these words taste good. So yeah, I'm really impressed with how Santa Barbara pulled that one off, because Cal Poly was one of the hotter teams when it came to winning games, because they were on a 12-game winning streak. And honestly, I thought that Santa Barbara getting hammered by Hawaii last week at UCSB really looked questionable. I was thinking is this Santa Barbara team for real, or are they just pretenders? So now I do feel a little like a little bad now. I do feel a little silly for saying that UCSB wasn't the real deal. I definitely think they're the real deal, and I definitely think they're one of the more improved teams. It's just that I just saw their schedule. There weren't too many standout victories, and they had that one loss to Colorado, and I think Colorado is kind of hurting right now. And they also have some other good standout wins against Pepperdine, UCLA, and San Diego. I just thought that loss to Hawaii just made me really wonder what the heck happened to Santa Barbara last week. But it's really great to see Santa Barbara get back on track this week. They definitely have a plethora of talent on that team, and it shows, honestly. It really does show. This week, Santa Barbara is on the road. They are on the road Thursday at UC Davis, and they are on the road Saturday again at UC Riverside. I'm going to be honest with you all. I think that UC Davis game is going to be a really tough one. I think despite having beaten UC Davis earlier, winning at Davis is going to be tough. Let me tell you why. Davis is actually playing some decent volleyball. While Davis isn't really one of the better teams in the conference, they're certainly not one of the worst. And let me tell you why. Davis actually took Hawaii on Sunday to 5 sets. Davis was actually up 2-0 against the Rainbow Wahine, or the Rainbow Warriors, or whatever you like to call them. And then it looked like Hawaii was going to lose their third Big West Conference match, because going into that match yesterday, Hawaii had already lost to UC Irvine and Cal Poly, and a third Big West Conference loss would not have been ideal. And then Hawaii suddenly just had that big burst of momentum where they just came through and just took the third set, then took the fourth set. It looked like it was going to go either way in that fifth set, and then they managed to hit their strides in set 5, and they took the fifth set 15-12, which was really huge for Hawaii to win that match. If they didn't win that match, their Big West Conference championship hopes would have taken a hit. And, this just goes to show you the parity of the Big West Conference. I think the Big West Conference has just been all over the place. Some teams that are favored to win are sometimes having to go 5, and then there's Hawaii, who was actually one of the hotter teams going into Big West Conference play. 2 of their matches, out of their conference wins they've played already, they've only registered 2 sweeps, being Saturday against UC Riverside, which isn't a surprise, and then last week against UCSB, which again was a very big shocker. It just goes to show you that Hawaii and some of the other Hawaii, Santa Barbara, and Cal Poly will need to work a lot harder if they want to win the Big West. If they want to win the Big West Conference. And honestly, that goes for pretty much every team that's favored to win the Big West Conference. Because honestly, there's no such thing as a guaranteed win. The Big West Conference is probably at its best. Big West is obviously not as Power 5-ish of a conference as the Pac-12 or the Big Ten or the ACC, you name it. Big West is kind of a small little conference. They only take 1 or 2 schools when it comes to the Big West or when it comes to the NCAA tournament. So I think this is one of the more stronger years for the Big West Conference, and no win is guaranteed. Like Hawaii has had to at least go 4 sets with some of these other teams that you would think that they would sweep, like Long Beach State, even though that's a rivalry game. They went 4 with Northridge. They had to go 5 and avoid the reverse, and they had to reverse sweep Cal State Fullerton. They went 5 and lost to Irvine, and they got reverse swept. And then they lost to Cal Poly, which was kind of a crucial loss. But looking back at it, I think Hawaii definitely was on the road, and Cal Poly being at home, they have the longest home winning streak in the nation, they're just so strong at home, and it's very intimidating when you're going up against a streak like that. And when UCSB plays at Cal Poly, they're going to be really forced out of their comfort zone. That's not going to be until November 9th, which is going to be so far away, honestly. They got, after they've got 2 road games this week, and then next week they play Long Beach State, which, that can go either way, but we're not going to jump that far ahead, As for Hawaii, they're kind of going to need to get it together when it comes to like winning conference games. They're only 1 game back of Santa Barbara and Cal Poly, but I don't know. It's like, is Hawaii for reals? Because I look at some of these matches, Hawaii definitely has some impressive victories, being against University of San Diego, Washington. They also swept UCLA. They beat Missouri. Their only lone non-conference loss was to Baylor, which, Baylor is the number 1 team in the nation for a reason. And then, once again, conference play hits. They beat Long Beach State in 4. They beat CSUN in 4. Both games were on the road. They were both back-to-backs as well. And then Irvine, they lost 2 in 5. And then they barely squeaked one out against Fullerton. And then, they split their matchups against Cal Poly and Santa Barbara. And then they managed to just string it together. They put it together against UC Riverside, which isn't really too surprising. Sweeping Riverside's no big deal. But against Davis, I honestly thought that was going to be a little bit better of a matchup, especially since Hawaii does really well at Stan Sheriff Center. And by the way, yesterday was Stan Sheriff Center's 60th birthday or something like that. So big happy birthday to Stan Sheriff Center. Gotta hit the applause button. Definitely gotta hit it for them, because that's a really, really sacred place. Lots of great volleyball matches on the men's and women's side were played there. Yeah, let's hit the applause button. It was actually their 25th anniversary. It wasn't their 60th birthday. So, yeah, that was my bad. But Stan Sheriff Center was celebrating its 25th year. But still, lots of great volleyball matches were played on the men's and women's side. Lots of history made. Stan Sheriff Center is one of the more memorable places to play at. So, and looking at Davis's record, they don't really have that bad of a record. They're 12-8 overall, but they're 5-2 in the Big West Conference. So it's and their only 2 losses were against UCSB and Hawaii. So looking back at it, Davis has also improved as well. But they've also had to go 5, and they even had to go 5 with Cal Poly, which they almost won, but they didn't. They went 5 with Long Beach State, and they won that one barely. So Davis is slightly improved. Davis is definitely one of the more improved teams. So they're kind of making me eat my words. In the match against Davis, Hawaii, they actually hit a solid hitting percentage. The first set they hit 250, second set they hit 265, third set they hit 290, fourth set they hit 520. And then fifth set, they hit 217. Davis didn't really hit that bad of a hitting percentage as well. The first set, they hit 3. By the way, for the match, Hawaii hit a grand total of 303 in that match, which is really impressive. As for Davis, they hit 314 in the first set. They hit 414 in set 2. They kind of cooled off in set 3, hitting 152. Then they kind of started to pick up some steam by hitting 212. And then set 5, they hit 235, which isn't bad, but, they only had 7 kills that set. And having only scored 12 points, that's not really that good. So then looking at the dig category, Davis did out dig Hawaii, and the blocks were neck and neck. Hawaii won that one by 1. Ace-wise, there weren't too many aces, which is a bit of a surprise. But That's just how it is. Kill leaders in that match were Hannah Helvig, who had 16 kills, McKenna Ross, who had 10 kills, and Skylar Williams, who had 10 kills. And then dig-wise, Noreen Ayazia had 9 digs, McKenna Ross had 9 digs, and Rika Okino had 8 digs. None of their players reached double digits when it came to digs, which kind of surprised me, but that's the excitement of volleyball. You never know what's going to happen. You could have the best hitting percentage in the world, and you could still lose. You could have like 100 digs at a match, and you could still lose. It's crazy. It's crazy, I tell you. It's crazy. And, Hawaii ran their 6-2 offense with Bailey Choi and Noreen Ayazia. And block-wise, Skylar Williams had 5 blocks. Amber Eguide had 4 blocks, and Ayazia had 3. So Noreen Ayazia was definitely stuffing the stats. She kind of had Madden numbers. She was definitely trying to flirt with that double-double, maybe even get a triple-double. It has happened before. As for UC Davis, Malia White had 17 kills, while Lauren Matias had 15 kills, and Leonie Strell had 11 kills. Dig-wise, Shavira Lahav had 18 digs, Lord Matias had 8 digs, and then Jane Seslar had 8 digs as well. They had one girl in double digits when it came to digs, but that was it. It must have been a high kill night. Both teams were neck and neck in kills. Hawaii had 64 kills, while Davis had 63 kills. But again, it is a little surprising to see Hawaii have to go 5, and they fell behind 2-0. They can't really do that, because if you fall behind 2-0 against an elite team such as like Stanford or Baylor or any of these other teams, it's going to be a recipe for disaster. Like, Hawaii just can't keep having to reverse sweep everybody, because you face a really good opponent, and if you're down 2-0, that other team that's up 2-0 is going to go straight for the kill. They're not going to let you get back up, especially in the NCAA tournament play, where if you're down 2-0, it's panic mode, and then panic kind of starts to settle in. And then, if that panic takes over your body, it's basically going to be a recipe for disaster. Because in the NCAA tournament, if it's one and done, you lose, you're out. Season's over. Bye. Better luck next year. So if I'm Hawaii, I definitely got to work on. You definitely got to work on like not allowing the opponent to go up 2-0, especially and possibly just not even allowing the other team to just get the upper hand, because if you give someone the edge, you could push them off. So I think that's kind of Hawaii's plan. They let the other teams get the edge, and then they eventually push them off. It sounds a little bit cliche, but honestly, Hawaii is definitely, they're definitely a good team on paper. But if they go down 2-0 against a better team, can they reverse sweep that team? My thing is, my thoughts on that one is definitely a big fat no. But I think Hawaii will have it figured out. You never know with the team. Sometimes teams just don't have a good practice, or sometimes it's a quick turnaround from one match to the other. Especially in Hawaii, especially if you're playing that trap game, where I think playing Riverside was definitely a trap game for Hawaii, where Riverside is not that good, and then I think Hawaii kind of looked ahead to Davis, because Davis was a much more better opponent, and I think that's what happened. That, to me, I think is what might have happened, because sometimes teams overlook opponents. Hawaii wants to win these games, and then I think they were thinking they had such an easy night against Davis, or they had such an easy night against Riverside, they were going to have an easy night against Davis. But then Davis just surprised him and said, you know what? We want to pull the upset. We only have one loss in conference. Let's keep it that way. But luckily those Rainbow Warriors just grinded it out. So next up for Hawaii, they are on the road this week. They play at Cal State Fullerton and at UC Irvine. I'm going to be honest, it might be tough to beat Cal State Fullerton. Fullerton is so much more improved. They have some stud players. One of them was Julia Crawford, who is related to J.P. Crawford of the Seattle Mariners. But Julia Crawford, she is really good. She had such a big night against Long Beach State, and she's kind of the hometown girl, having grown up around Long Beach. She went to Lakewood High. But yeah, I think Fullerton may give problems to Hawaii on Friday. And then Saturday, Hawaii plays UC Irvine at Brent Event Center. So I think those could present problems. And, but I expect Hawaii to at least take one, if not both. I expect them to win both those matches. Next week, Hawaii plays UC Santa Barbara at Hawaii. Now, that's a game you cannot overlook. Oh, yeah, next week they also play Cal Poly, but they just can't look that far ahead. They have to get through their matches against Fullerton or Irvine, otherwise they'll be out of Big West Conference championship contention for good, because you lose one game, it's kind of like college football. If you lose one game, it's kind of hurts your record. It hurts your record, but it kind of hurts you overall in terms of like top 25 standards, and it also hurts you in terms of like achieving your goal, whether it's like winning conference or making it to a certain bowl game or making the Final Four. I know it's comparing volleyball and comparing football is kind of like comparing apples to oranges, but honestly, it's a little tough. One loss in this now very improved Big West Conference could be detrimental. I don't want to say that, but it's kind of true. There's no such thing as easy nights. You have to actually go out there and win. You never know which team could surprise you. All right, so enough about Big West Conference. If you all see me at Long Beach State on Saturday, feel free to drop by and say hi to me. I definitely would appreciate that. And yeah, so now let's move on from the Big West Conference. Let's actually talk about the recruiting classes. The recruiting classes for the class of 2019. This was first reported by Prep Volleyball. I see you all there. Keep doing your thing. So the top 10 recruiting classes when it comes to women's volleyball are number 10, Colorado, which is really cool. They have a decent class as it is, but they just got better, especially when it comes to the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 is really good, man. It's really good and really loaded with a lot of good teams. So Colorado's number 10. Number 9, USC. Larry B is probably going to be super happy to hear that, because USC has a very promising women's volleyball program, and with having a top 10 recruiting class, it's just really good, especially going forward. And like I said, the Pac-12 conference is loaded, and if you have a really good recruiting class, it just benefits you so much in the long run. So that's really cool. Number 8 is Purdue. Purdue, which really is surprising considering they're one of 2 Big Ten teams that it has the top 10 recruiting 2019 recruiting class. So that's really cool that Purdue is going to have Purdue's future is going to look really good. It's really, really cool. And then number 7 is Oregon, which, Oregon always has a really good recruiting class year in and year out, honestly, because Oregon, like I said, Pac-12 team, in a conference that wants to win, or that is basically not guaranteed a clear-cut conference champion, Oregon, has to load up. And, they lost 3 players due to transferring, and they've kind of had to shuffle their lineup around. So to have a top 10 recruiting class is really huge. It's really, really big. Number 6 is TCU, Texas Christian University. Well, I'll be darned. A Big 12 school. TCU is definitely one of the more underappreciated schools. I feel they kind of get the shaft because of Baylor and of another certain Big 12 Texas team that I'm going to be mentioning later on the top 10 recruiting classes. But for TCU to get to be in the top 10 when it comes to recruiting classes, that is really cool. Really cool for TCU. Really, really cool. And I think they're on their way. Baylor and a certain other team will need to watch out for the Horned Frogs going forward. Okay, now for the top 5. And I said that there was actually two Big Ten teams when it came to the top 10 when it came to the 2019 recruiting class. Number 5 is actually Ohio State. The Ohio State is number 5 when it comes to the best 2019 recruiting class. So that's really cool that Ohio State is number 5. They actually have a really good men's program as well. And especially in the Big Ten, where that conference is also a dogfight with teams like Wisconsin, Penn State, Minnesota. Those teams are really good. And to have a top 5 recruiting class is really, really beneficial for them. And, watch out for those Buckeyes. I think Ohio State can actually make their way going forward. So that's really cool. Really, really awesome. Number 4 is BYU. They're the only West Coast Conference team to have a top 10 recruiting class of 2019. So that's really cool that BYU has a top 10 recruiting class and top 5 recruiting class for that matter, considering that they're in a bit of a battle with University of San Diego, and San Diego always gets some good players as well. But to have a top 5 recruiting class is really, really outstanding, and they're young this year, but they're going to continue to reload year after year after year, and their future looks bright. So anyway, number 3 is Texas when it comes to the recruiting class of 2019. Texas is the other Big 12 team that's on this list when it comes to the top recruiting class of 2019. Texas, obviously is a really good program as well, and they're very promising. And those Longhorns, man, all I gotta say is hook them, and they're gonna challenge Baylor next year. If Baylor will obviously win it this year because Baylor is just Baylor. But honestly, I can see Texas reclaiming the Big 12. Not that Texas hasn't won it, Texas hasn't lost it just yet. But honestly, it's looking like Baylor's going to win the Big 12 this year. But you never know. I'll be getting into that a little bit later. Now for number 2, we have Nebraska. When it comes to the top recruiting class of 2019, Nebraska is Nebraska. They won the national championship 2 years ago. They were in the national championship match last year. Nebraska is young, but again, they have 0 seniors on that team. But their junior class is going to be so good, especially with Lexi Sun. And then their sophomore class is promising. Their freshman class currently is good. And then this 2019 class is going to be really, really talented as well. So those Cornhuskers are on their way. They're not going anywhere. And for number 1, it is Stanford, the number 1 team that has the best recruiting class of 2019. This comes to me at no surprise because Stanford is a very, very, very storied program. I think they're tied with the most NCAA championships in women's volleyball with 8 with Penn State. So Stanford definitely, they're the team that continues to reload instead of rebuild. They're definitely going to need to find a replacement for Catherine Plummer, who is still out, but she'll be back soon, hopefully. Who is the 2-time AVCA Player of the Year, and she was also the AVCA National Freshman of the Year. So that's pretty cool for her. And Stanford is definitely going to be up there for the next few years. I just don't see how Stanford. I just don't see any any way how Stanford will fall off. Stanford is a really good program. Stanford's a very good program, really good coaching staff. I think that they have what it takes to just continue to win, and win some more. This year's been a little bit rough for them, but the Cardinal, they're definitely gonna be locked and loaded for years to come. So definitely gotta give those 10 teams a round of applause. Once again, the top 10 colleges. The top 10 schools that had the best 2019 recruiting class in women's volleyball are number 10, Colorado, number 9, USC, number 8, Purdue, number 7, Oregon, number 6, TCU, number 5, Ohio State, number 4, BYU, number 3, Texas, number 2, Nebraska, and number 1, Stanford. Let's hit the applause button for them. I think also Long Beach State will also will have a really good freshman coming in next year, being Mia Tuaniga. For those of you that don't know, she is the little sister of Josh Tuaniga, who was a 2-time NCAA champion and who was also a national champion in high school. So yeah, I think Long Beach State will be so much better next year, especially with Tuaniga. I mean, I'm not saying that Long Beach isn't good this year. They definitely have their show promise. It's just that with Tuaniga, they're just going to be so much better. They'll have all kinds of possibilities. They'll be running 6-2 quite often, but it'll also depend on which setter they'll use. Or maybe they'll just use Tuaniga at outside. Either way, the possibilities are endless when it comes to having Mia Tuaniga. For those of you that haven't seen Tuaniga play at Mater Dei, the CIF Southern Section playoffs will start this week. So if you're in the Santa Ana area where Mater Dei is at, and you haven't seen Mia Tuaniga play, now's the time to go see her play. I sound like a promoter, honestly, but honestly, Mia Tuaniga is a freaking beast. Her top spin serves are just deadly. She can play pretty much any position, whether it's right side, outside. She's a really good setter. She has really misguiding dump kills, and her blocking has also improved as well. So she's just the complete package. She's just friggin' amazing. She definitely lives up to the reputation of her family. So yeah, you definitely got to catch Mia Tuaniga at a Mater Dei girls volleyball game before the season is over. But anyway, enough about that. Oops. Oh, and I accidentally hit the applause button. So anyway, now it's time to go into the Pac-12 matchups. And there were a lot of really good Pac-12 matchups from yesterday. There were some really good Pac-12 matchups. Yesterday, Utah and Stanford went at each other. Stanford won 3-2. Arizona State upset Washington State after they were down 2-0. Cal outlasted Colorado. UCLA outlasted Oregon State. There were just so many 5-set matchups on Sunday. So many 5-set matchups on Sunday. So little time. And then there was also that 5-set match on Friday when San Diego took down BYU at Provo. So that's what I love about volleyball. 5-set matchups are really, really amazing. They can be very taxing physically and emotionally for players, and it's very emotional for fans as well, considering they're on the edge of their seats, they're just nervous. It's like being on a blind date almost. Except I've never been on a blind date. So honestly, but yeah, there were so many good Pac-12 matchups, man. It's just not even funny. And another matchup that went 5 was Grand Canyon and Cal Baptist. Shout out to the big homie Larry B. I see you. I even said I definitely want to see Cal Baptist take a set or two off of off of Grand Canyon. I knew that Cal Baptist wasn't going to win. Sorry, Larry. But I knew they were going to at least push Grand Canyon, because Grand Canyon's a pretty solid team. They're tied for second in the WAC, and honestly, to have gone 5 with them is really amazing for Cal Baptist. So they definitely deserve some applause. So, about that Stanford-Utah matchup, Stanford nearly lost that one. I was very surprised. I was looking back and forth from NFL Sunday Football to that match, and I was like, wait, Utah's up 2-1 on Stanford? That's crazy. And then Stanford dug deep and took that 4th set, forcing a 5th set, and it looked like Stanford was going to lose in the 5th set. I think Utah had 2 match points. They were up 14-12 at one point, and then Stanford just dug deep. They didn't have Catherine Plummer, like I said, because she's out. Taking her place was Audrina Fitzmaurice, who I believe she had 18 kills. She led Stanford in kills yesterday. She's a force in the middle. She and Madeline Gates both are forces in the middle. So they really worked well in the middle together. Other players that stood out were Megan McClure, who is a Southern California product who went to Santa Margarita High. She had like 15 kills, I believe. And then Kendall Kipp, who I predicted was going to be the National Freshman of the Year, had 11 kills, which is really cool, honestly. Which is really good. I knew Stanford was going to take that match, but I didn't think Utah was going to push them that far back. But again, conference play, you just never know what's going to happen. And Utah had to go 5 with Cal on Friday, so Utah is definitely showing that they're one of the more underappreciated teams in the Pac-12. And honestly, anyone can win that Pac-12. Anyone can win that Pac-12. Anybody. There's no debating. Looking at the standings right now, Cal and Stanford are both still 7-1. Washington is all alone in second place. As they beat Arizona in 4. They're 6-2 in the conference. Even though Washington did beat USC, they still have a loss to. They still lost to Washington State and to USC, which was kind of unexpected for the Huskies to lose that USC matchup. I thought they were going to win that one quite easily, but USC served the ball really tough, and that's what makes them a really, really good team. When USC is serving bullets like that, they're just such a tough team to beat. So anyway, back to the Pac-12 standings. Washington State, they lost a tough one to Arizona State yesterday. They're tied for 3rd with Utah, USC, and UCLA. USC, of all the teams that I thought was going to sweep yesterday in the Pac-12, I did not think USC was going to sweep their matchup. USC swept Oregon. I was very, very surprised USC would sweep Oregon, because playing at Matthew Knight Arena is so tough, and Oregon's really good when playing at Matthew MKA. But honestly, USC just went on the road and they got it done. However, those sets were very close. The first set was, all 3 sets were 25-23, which is really, really, really tight, really close. And you just can't make mistakes like that. If you're Oregon, Oregon is definitely having one of their more rebuilding years. They have had to shuffle up their lineup, but USC really brought it to them. They really brought to them that match, because playing on the road is just it's tough, and USC has had their ups and downs. Mainly their downs, considering they've played kind of a brutal schedule. They've had some tough losses here and there. But, to go on the road and to beat Oregon is very impressive. And I'm pretty sure Larry B is happy about that win. And they have, again, USC has some good players such as Kyla Lanier, Brooke Botkin, Jasmine Gross, Raquel Lazaro. you name it. So definitely got to give USC a little bit of an applause. It was a good weekend for USC athletics overall as their football team won. But this isn't 3-and-out college edition. Looking at the stats of that match, Oregon out-aced USC 11-5. I said USC can serve the ball well, but Oregon really took that role right out from under their noses. So Oregon really out-aced them, but Oregon's hitting percentage really left a little to be desired. They only hit 136, and in set 2 and 3 they hit 231 and 214, while in set 1 they only hit 34, which. Also USC hit 113 in that first set as well. But the second set, USC hit a lot better. They hit 344 and then they hit 393, which is very impressive. I definitely think USC is that off and on type of team. They're kind of like their football team. Sometimes they win matchups they're not expected to win, and then they sometimes lose matchups USC is like their football. USC's women's volleyball team is like their football team. They lose matchups they're expected to win, but they win matchups they're expected to lose. That's pretty much what I have to say. That's pretty much what I'm getting at. And looking at the leaders, Kalia Lanier had 15 kills, Jasmine Gross had 10 kills, and Amelia Wesk had 8 kills. For Oregon, Brooke Nunneveller, who, as I've said, she's shifted from libero to outside hitter, had 8 kills. Willow Johnson had 7 kills, and then Ronica Stone had 6 kills. Dig-wise, Reagan LeGrand, who is now the libero for USC after winning the starting job for libero, had 17 digs. Wesk had 12 kills, and then Raquel Lazaro had 10. I'm mentioning digs. Reagan LeGrand had 17 digs, Amelia Wesk had 12 digs, and then Raquel Lazaro had 10 digs. I always get kills and digs mixed up. I can't afford to do that. It's like, come on, man. As for Oregon's dig leaders, Nunneveller had 14 digs, Elise Ferreira had 10 digs, and then Georgia Murphy, who is the current libero for Oregon, had 9 digs. So as for assists-wise, Raquel Lazaro had 36 assists, which gave her a double-double. And then Oregon runs a 6-2 offense, which is really cool. I saw Oregon running their 6-2 offense. Ferreira had 16 digs, which gave her a double-double as well. And then Kylie Robinson had 13 assists. Ferreira had 16 assists and 10 digs, which is cool. I like to see players get double-doubles. It really does benefits a player, and it makes them just... It's like the NBA, but except it's tougher to get a double-double in volleyball than it is in basketball, because in basketball you're basically just trying to get points, and then you're trying to just get your stats all over the place. Where in volleyball, there's no time limit. There's no cap. You basically have to get your stats how you want to get your stats. It's not like it's being played in quarters where you just get X amount of points and then X amount of boards and then X amount of assists. It doesn't work like that. It's complicated. But that's for another day. But as for the Pac-12, there were a lot of good, like I said, there were a lot of good matchups over the weekend. I was so happy to see so many games going 5. I'm pretty sure the fans were nervous as heck, but honestly, yeah, I just love 5-set matches. So yeah, actually Kendall Kipp and Megan McClure had 14 kills apiece in their matchup against Utah yesterday. And Audrina Fitzmaurice, I'm pretty certain I said she had 18 kills, and she did have 18 kills. This is 100% confirmed. For Utah, Danny Drews had 21 kills. Kenzie Korber had 15 kills, and then Berkeley Oblad had 13 kills. Assist-wise, Morgan Jenegray had 60 assists, which is really amazing. Morgan Hentz, who is the libero for Stanford, had 6 assists. Then even Madeline Gates, the middle blocker, had 1 assist, which is kind of funny because 99% of times when a middle sets, it's basically a double. So to get an assist is pretty cool. And then dig-wise, Morgan Hentz, the libero, had 22 digs. Megan McClure had 14 digs. And then Kate Formico had 13 digs. Megan McClure had a 14 by 14 today. She had 14 digs and 14 kills, which is pretty cool. So she's definitely grown into a starting role for Stanford, and she's definitely adapted to one of the better players at Stanford, and she's basically going to be Catherine Plummer 2.0, and except without the setting. But who knows? Maybe she is working on her setting. As for Utah, in terms of their digs, Brianna Doherman had 25 digs. Danny Drews had 14 digs, and then Megan Yet had 14 digs. Danny Drews also registered a double-double, which is really cool. And then assist-wise, they just ran 5-1 offense. Kaania Torres had 57 assists. Danny Drews had a pair of assists. And then Doherman had 2 assists as well. So that's pretty cool. So that's cool and all. Really, really cool. The stats were very close. They were neck and neck. Stanford barely dominated the dig category, 83-80. Ace-wise, Utah barely won that category, 6-5. Block-wise, Stanford won that one, 15-14. Utah is definitely emerging as one of the better teams in the Pac-12. They're not on the level of Stanford or Cal, but they're right there. Utah is right there. If they clean up a few things, they're definitely one of the better Pac-12 teams, and they definitely can make a deep run into the NCAA tournament. Utah is impressive. I just think people need to stop sleeping on them. They did have that one loss to Oregon where they were down 2-0, and then they forced a 5th set, and then Oregon just barely pulled it off. But it's always tough to win at Matthew Knight Arena. Sometimes a certain team is so much better at home than they are on the road, which can say a lot about other teams. Stanford's one of those teams who plays really well at home. It's kind of like playing at Maples Pavilion is kind of like their safe haven for the most part. So it's cool. It's cool. Utah will look to get back on track as they have 2 home games this week, one being on Friday against Washington, and then Sunday against Washington State. Those are 2 crucial games for Utah because as the season progresses and as Utah gets into the later stages of their schedule, they're definitely going to need to pick up some big wins. They obviously played well against Stanford and they played well against Cal. The problem is, playing on the road's tough. It really is. And then Cal, being one of the more improved teams, they're just good. And then Cal, Cal also had to go 5 with Colorado, which also surprised me. But then again, that's kind of a trap game match. Many people don't expect Colorado to be one of the better teams in the Pac-12. However, when you face Colorado, you kind of see that they're a bit banged up. But Colorado is a scrappy team. They definitely can put up a fight, and if you're not ready for Colorado, you could be on the wrong side of the score. So anyone can beat anyone at this point. You definitely can't sleep on anybody. You just can't. I promise you. You can't. I promise. Just please don't sleep on anyone. Just get it done. So anyway, to close the book on the Big 12, I'm really looking forward to this week. I'm interested to see how Cal will do Cal will do this week against Stanford or against USC and UCLA, because those two teams are really good, and Cal in the past hasn't really had the best success against the Trojans and the Bruins, but who knows, maybe Cal can go on the road and pick up a pair of wins. And, I mean, they definitely have the players such as Mima Mirkovic, who is a junior, and like I said, I talked about her on Saturday, and she said she's not only a really good really good indoor player, but she's a really good beach player as well. She even got to play with Catherine Plummer a summer or two ago. So definitely got to watch for her having a big game against those two schools. And then I'm also interested to see how Utah does against the Washington schools. Those Washington schools are also on the bubble, especially Washington. Washington State has had their ups and downs. Losing to ASU was very unexpected. I didn't think they were going to lose that one. And then, especially when you're up 2-0, it's like, why do these teams always relax when they're up 2-0? You just can't, especially when you're at home. You just can't get home comatose against a team like Arizona State. And in the Pac-12 too, you just can't get home comatose. Like, you gotta close out the match. Just saying. Alright, so bottom line is, the Pac-12, still the Pac-12. You never know what could happen. Now to jump to the ACC, where we had ourselves a crazy week, honestly. I believe it was Wednesday, I predicted Notre Dame to knock off Louisville. And Louisville managed to knock off Notre Dame in 5. So I'm eating my words, and they are delicious. However, Notre Dame was up 2-0 in the match, and then Louisville just came back to win that one. So it's like, bruh, come on, man. What are you doing? Like, I know it's tough to close out a big time match like that, being up 2-0. But what are you doing? You can't just allow the other team to come back in a match. And I kind of feel that Notre Dame was looking ahead to... It might have been the case of Notre Dame looking ahead to this week, considering Notre Dame is definitely Notre Dame is definitely a great team. Don't get me wrong. They're nowhere near bad. I mean, they're 14-4 overall, and they're 7-1 in the ACC. But they're just not on the level as Pitt. I think they were trying to be like Pitt, and they were just trying to look ahead to that game, saying, oh, we really want to beat Pitt this week. Well, you kind of forgot all about Louisville. They did, however, get back on track by beating Virginia Tech in 4. About Virginia Tech, however, Virginia Tech, that same Virginia Tech team, also beat Louisville in 4 yesterday. Yes, a match that didn't go 5. So that was really big for Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is also... Well, Virginia Tech is... Oof. They're at the bottom. Virginia Tech is all the way down at the bottom of the ACC. And then Louisville lost that one in 4, which is very surprising. I think Louisville was also had the case of looking ahead as well, because they play Pitt on Sunday. So I think Louisville definitely looked ahead. Louisville and Notre Dame both looked ahead. I thought Louisville was going to turn the corner and they were going to continue their winning ways against Virginia Tech. And keep in mind, Virginia Tech is dead last in the ACC. And then Louisville managed to lose that one. Again, it just goes to show you can't overlook anybody. You just can't. It's like, come on now. I mean, maybe it was a case of the Sundays. Either way, and then Louisville, and I do remember in set 3, I was kind of glancing at that match. Louisville was red hot throughout the first 2 sets, and they were still hot in set 3, and then suddenly they just cooled off, and they hit in the 100s. It's like, come on, man. And then all that momentum went out the window after they lost that set. After they lost set 3, and then set 4, they just couldn't get it back together. So it's kind of sad, actually. I mean, When you're Louisville and Notre Dame and you want to win that ACC, you definitely can't look ahead. As for Pitt, Pitt has a huge matchup, two huge matchups this week. They play at Notre Dame on Friday and they play at Louisville on Sunday. I can see Notre Dame and Louisville challenging Pitt, but I honestly don't see Pitt losing either one of those matches. I can at least see Louisville I for sure can see Louisville pushing Pitt to 5, and I also can see Notre Dame taking a set off of Pitt, but I just think Pitt is just too much for both of those teams. I think Pitt has definitely improved from last year, because Pitt also was pretty much undefeated going into conference play as it was, and I think they lost that one unexpected matchup, which definitely no one was expecting, and I think this year Pitt has just been more impressive considering they just don't look ahead, and they've only got one loss on the season. That was to Penn State, which they actually split those matchups. Pitt swept Penn State at Penn State, and then they managed to have a bit of a boo-boo against Penn State at Pitt, which is kind of surprising. But then again, that's what happens when you schedule a juggernaut. When you schedule a juggernaut on back-to-back games. But that's none of my business. But I see Pitt winning both of their matches this week. I do see Louisville just trying to force a fifth set. I can see them forcing a fifth set, and it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. But I just think Pitt is so much better. Gotta give a shout out to Pitt. They are currently number 3 in the ACC, or in the top 25 last I checked. So gotta hit the applause button for them. And then Louisville was number 23 last I checked. I believe the new top 25 has come out. So, but as of right now, and it has. The new top 25 has come out. We shall talk about the top 25 in a little bit. But to close the book on the ACC, this one is going to look like a one-horse race if Pitt wins both their games this week. If Pitt beats Notre Dame and Louisville, it's over. It's a wrap. Just give them the conference championship. Pitt has definitely improved. Like I said, Pitt has definitely improved from last year. They returned a majority of their players, and they definitely did themselves the great honor of playing a tough schedule, because I think last year they were a little criticized for having a little bit of a soft schedule. But they have some decent wins. They beat Oregon, they beat Cal Poly, they beat Utah, which is really good. They did have to go 5 with Pepperdine, but Pepperdine is really improved. Like I said, they swept Penn State. They went 5 with Penn State, but lost. But I think that loss to Penn State kind of ignited Pitt to just say, we can't underestimate anyone, and we can't just overlook. We can't underestimate, and we can't overlook, and we can't look ahead. We just can't do anything. We just gotta be consistent on a nightly basis. And fortunately for Louisville, that Louisville does get to play Pitt twice this year. I don't know what I'm not necessarily sure what the guidelines are for playing certain teams in like a 16-team conference or something or not 16-team conference, in like a 16 conference game schedule, but it varies. It varies. It also depends on like the numbers, and also depends on past schedules as well. So there's that. Now on to the top 25. We're going to do it Larry B style. We're going to go from 25 to 22, or to 25 to 21. Missouri is at number 25 this week. Washington State took a little bit of a dip, going from 21 down to 24. Western Kentucky, 21 and 1, and they moved up a spot to number 23 this week. And would you look at that? San Diego, not ranked last week, pulling off that big upset against BYU. They're now ranked number 22 in the top 25. And number 21 is Hawaii, the Rainbow Wahine, barely pulling it off against UC Davis, pulling off the reverse sweep and barely avoiding losing at Stan Sheriff Center. Now let's go 20-16. Purdue is number 20. Those Boilermakers, they actually did take a set off of Nebraska last week, which was very impressive by them. I thought they were going to get swept by Nebraska, but once again, I am eating my words. They are delicious. Anyways, Rice is number 19. Utah, the Utes, number 18. Illinois, who took Wisconsin to 5 sets last week, is 17. It's very impressive to see that they still have some fight within them. They did lose a good chunk of their team last year to graduation, but they're still fighting. You can't sleep on Illinois. Just like in football, where Illinois' football team upset Wisconsin, who was number 6 at the time, which, I don't think anyone saw that coming. And I believe that was Illinois' first win over a ranked Big Ten opponent since beating Ohio State. But that's for 3-and-out college edition for tomorrow. Larry B will be on that. So Larry B will be on that show tomorrow, so you can tune into that. Anyway, 15 through 11, and then rounding up 20 through 16 is Kentucky. Now through 15 through 11, Cal, the Golden Bears, are at 15. Colorado State, one of the hotter teams in the NCAA, they are at number 14. Colorado State, being in the Mountain West Conference, they have won 17 in a row, and they have no intention of slowing down. Florida, the Gators, they're at number 13. BYU dropped from 9 to number 12. Rounding up the 15 through 11 is Marquette, who went up a spot. Now for top 10. We'll go 10 through 6. Number 10 is Creighton, who went up a spot. Washington is number 9, who also went up a spot. Penn State, the Nittany Lions, they are number 8. They stayed there. Number 7 is Minnesota. And number 6 is Wisconsin. Now for your top 5. Number 5 is Nebraska, the Cornhuskers. Number 4 is Texas. Number 3, Pitt, who is having a phenomenal year and who earned a first place vote. Number 2 is Stanford, who earned 2 first place votes. And your number 1 team in the nation is Baylor. They have occupied the number 1 spot yet again. Let's hit the applause button for the Baylor Bears. And in addition to that, Baylor is also number 1 when it comes to the RPIs. So that's really big for them as well. They are definitely looking like a true contender for them. And I believe it is this week that Baylor plays Texas, which is the biggest matchup of the season. Yes, they do. Baylor plays Texas on Wednesday. It's going to be at Texas, and it's going to be a huge matchup for both teams. It's definitely going to be a big-time matchup, and good thing that Baylor did not look ahead. So I think this matchup is going to be one of the more intense matchups. It's going to take the Baylor-Texas rivalry to a new level. It's going to be the matchup of the night. I don't care what anyone says. Baylor-Texas, you definitely got to tune into that one. It's going to be on the Longhorn Network. And I'm surprised that's not on ESPN3 or ESPN Plus. I'm surprised that's not going to be nationally televised. But then again, I think the NBA is on that night. But that doesn't matter. Why? Why you got to do that to us, ESPN? Why you got to do that to Baylor and Texas? Anyway, so for Baylor and Texas, that one's going to be a very close matchup. I'm going to take Baylor to win that one in 5 sets. I honestly think Texas has what it takes to challenge Baylor, but I just think Texas is not quite there yet. I think Baylor's having a phenomenal season, And they've only dropped 3 sets all year, which is very impressive. They lost that 1 set to Houston, which I don't know what happened. And then they lost that 1 set to Wisconsin, which was number 4 at the time. And then Baylor wasn't even close to the top 5. So there's that. I definitely can see Baylor winning. I definitely see Baylor beating Texas. I just think it'll go 5. Because Texas does have some talented players as well. Previewing that match, some players to watch for. A player to watch for in that Baylor Texas match is Yesenia Presley, who is a junior outside hitter, and she's definitely I think she has one of the top hitting percentages in the NCAA. I definitely want to say that. It's not confirmed, but honestly, it's definitely one of the more. It's definitely an impressive sight to see. And then as for Texas, they're having a phenomenal season as well. They did lose that 1 match to Rice, but honestly, Texas is having a great season. Looking at their schedule, they're definitely not going to be I don't think they have any games prior to that. They're 12-2 on the year, and their only 2 losses were to Stanford, which is definitely reasonable because it was at Stanford, and they played Stanford tooth and nail in that match. It was basically a grind to try to beat Stanford and become one of the few teams to beat Stanford at Stanford. Their other loss came against Rice, but Rice is so much better than. I think they're the most under the radar team ever, and as a result, they're in the top 25. So this is definitely going to be a huge matchup for Texas. This could be whoever wins basically has a leg up on the Big 12 standings. So I really want that match to go 5, and I definitely think Baylor wins that one in 5. But if anything, if anything, I see Baylor winning that one. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas won, but Texas, I think Baylor just has the better Mustangs of the 2 teams. Volleyball is an unpredictable sport. You never know what happens. You have to have a good practice prior. So, I see, one player who I think will stand out when it comes to Texas is Logan Eggleston. Eggleston, who was also, I believe she was also a junior national. She was on the junior youth national team, and she was also on the U.S. women's collegiate team. She currently has 61 kills. Not a whole. It's not as much as many people would think, but she's definitely one of the more under the radar players. And I definitely think that she's going to make a major difference in that match. And it's going to be a really good one. Like, I think I have something going on that day, but if I do get around to watching it, I definitely want to see. I definitely want to see that match. Logan. Logan Eggleston has 191 kills on the season, and I believe, and she's also hitting a hitting percentage of 306. So I think Eggleston and Yesenia are definitely going, or Yesenia Presley are definitely going to have a big time matchup. It's basically going to be a nice little friendly competition between those two, and I wouldn't expect anything less between those two. I think those two are going to be your kill leaders for the night. So if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I'm picking Baylor to win that one in 5. It should go 5 no matter what. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I definitely want to see a 5-set match. I definitely want to see a 5-set matchup between those two. If it were a sweep, I'd be so disappointed, because no one likes to see a sweep when it comes to a top 5 matchup. So we'll see how it goes, though. But I'm pretty sure that Texas gymnasium is going to be packed. So to close this out, I would like to know your guys' opinion. Would you like for me to talk about the CIF Southern Section girls volleyball playoffs? You could also hit me up on Twitter as well, at Teran Rodriguez 1. My first name is spelled Teran, and then my last name, Rodriguez, is spelled Rodriguez, and then the number 1. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter and say, hey, you're more than welcome to talk about the CIF Southern Section girls volleyball playoffs, because in Division 1, that's where some really talented teams are at. And, the playoffs start this week. It is California, however, it's the California Interscholastic Federation Southern Section champion. So if you're not into that California's type of thing, I'll skip over it. But if you're into that California, the CIF Southern Section girls volleyball playoffs, definitely hit me up and definitely say, hey, Teran, you're more than welcome to talk about it. I definitely want to hear it. Because, if y'all want to listen to me ramble about CIF Southern Section girls volleyball playoffs, then I'm more than happy to. I definitely would like to, because I've seen some of these teams play, and it is really, really cool. But, I also want to make time for college volleyball all over the place. I'll also be talking about some California Community College Athletic Association women's volleyball as well, or the 3C2A. So I'll kind of be dipping into that, especially when the postseason starts. I'm really looking forward to that. I know I'm kind of ripping off 3-and-out college edition, but junior college definitely deserves some love as well, because junior college is where I got my start at, and look at me now. I'm a on the rise sports writer, and I'm halfway through my time at Long Beach State. So with all that said, once again, feel free to hit me up. You know where to find me at Teran Rodriguez 1 on Twitter. You could also drop a comment when it comes to Spreaker. So yeah, with all that said, as Larry B would say, cue the music. So once again, this is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, signing out, y'all. You can find me tomorrow on The Defining Moment with Larry B. And once again, hit me up on Twitter, at Teran Rodriguez 1. So have a great rest of the day, and have a great rest of the week. Keep on spiking it.